There's no denying the fact that sequels are the lifeblood Hollywood feeds on. If a single movie is successful, producers will want to see a follow-up that gives audiences more of what they dug the first time around. And while many sequels simply make complete sense artistically as well as commercially, there are some whose announcement simply leaves everyone asking, why though? I'm Ellie for What Culture, and these are 10 announced sequels nobody asked for. Number 10, Meet the Parents 4. It's fair to say that the Meet the Parents franchise had well and truly run its course after 3 movies. The original hit comedy could have easily been a one-off, but sequels Meet the Fockers and Little Fockers followed in 2004 and 2010 respectively. Though the third film, which was critically panned and the lowest grossing of the trio, seemed to mark the end of the IP, it was just confirmed that Meet the Parents 4 is now in early development. John Hamburg, who wrote the first 3 films, will serve as writer and director this time around, while original stars Robert De Niro, Ben Stiller, Terry Polo and Blythe Danner are all expected to return. There are creatively bankrupt, wildly unnecessary sequels. And then there's whatever this is. Considering that theatrical comedies have largely gone away and the world has generally moved on from Meet the Parents as a franchise, it's tough not to see this as a desperate nostalgia play. A trilogy was already at least one movie too many. And now this? Number 9, Wind River: The Next Chapter. Wind River is a terrific Western crime thriller from the great Taylor Sheridan. But did anyone come away from the acclaimed Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen starring noir feeling the story wasn't wrapped up? Well, Wind River: The Next Chapter was filmed in the spring of 2023, though neither Renner nor Olsen returned to star, with the story instead focusing on a supporting character from the first film, Martin Hansen, and his family. Moreover, Sheridan seemingly had nothing to do with this sequel, given that he isn't credited as a writer, a director, or even a producer, with Kari Skogland instead hopping into the director's chair. Talk about a movie that was perfectly fine as a neat one-off. Nothing about Wind River suggested more movies in this universe were viable. And yet, here we are. It's somewhat concerning that the film, which was shot 2 years ago and presumably had only minimal VFX work in post-production, still hasn't been released. Given that even the original, far more star-studded film was a relatively modest box office success itself, it's easy to picture this one coming and going in a flash, even if it actually happens to be good. Number 8, Hitch II. Hitch is a perfectly enjoyable slice of rom-com froth that doesn't in any way tee up an obvious sequel. It's a fun romp about a professional matchmaker who faces his own romantic difficulties. And that's it. But Hitch also grossed over $370 million globally, and with early 2000s nostalgia imminently hitting its stride, of course Hollywood is trying to make Hitch II a thing. Back in February, original Hitch director Andy Tennant spoke about the film to commemorate its 20th anniversary, and revealed that he actually attempted to get a Hitch sequel going recently, only to learn from a Sony executive that Will Smith's production company is already on the case. As of late last year, Smith was apparently quietly developing Hitch II, and though there hasn't yet been a formal announcement, his successful recent rejuvenation of the Bad Boys franchise means an announcement could be imminent. Even though Smith's box office prowess was evidently undeterred by The Slap, it's still tough to picture there being a substantial audience for a big screen Hitch sequel 20 plus years later. Number 7, The Strangers Chapters 2 and 3. Now, in fairness, we've known that 2 more entries into the Strangers franchise were on the way for a good while. When last year's reboot of the hit slasher franchise was first announced in 2022, Lionsgate also revealed that it was shot back-to-back with 2 sequels, the entire trilogy being shot between September and November 2022. It was certainly a bold strategy, to roll the dice on a trilogy of new Strangers films before they'd even released a single good one, and alas, The Strangers Chapter 1 released last year to predictably poor reviews, though performed solidly at the box office thanks to a sensibly low budget. Yet for all but the most die-hard Strangers fans, Chapter 1 killed most interest in the rest of this trilogy. And to make matters worse, director Renny Harlin reportedly ended up reshooting portions of Chapter 2 and 3 recently after spoilers about a killer's identity leaked online. It sounds like a big ol' hot mess, honestly, and by the time Chapter 2 finally releases this coming September, will anyone even have more than a vague memory of watching Chapter 1? Number 6, Spaceballs 2. Once upon a time, Spaceballs 2 actually seemed like a pretty good idea, with Mel Brooks' original 1987 Star Wars parody even including a gag about the prospective follow-up, which is dubbed Spaceballs 2: The Search for More Money. Yet last June, some 37 years after Spaceballs' release, the sequel was officially confirmed to be in the works, with Josh Gad set to star and produce with a 98-year-old Brooks in tow, while Josh Greenbaum directs. But let's be honest, at this point in his life and career, Brooks' involvement will likely be minimal at best. And the recent TV series sequel to his cult classic comedy History of the World Part 1 wasn't exactly great. Gad's enthusiasm to do Spaceballs 2 right is laudable, but it's also easy to approach his claim that everyone who's read the script has been blown away with a truckload of salt. Spaceballs 2 should have happened in the 90s, ideally the early 90s when John Candy was still alive. But in 2025, there just isn't the audience hunger for it. Number 5. Stunt Nuts the Movie. If, like the entire world, you're asking, what the hell is Stunt Nuts? Allow me to explain. Stunt Nuts the Movie stars Sam Rockwell and Chris Hemsworth as a pair of athletes who hire out their services as stuntmen to try and save their cash-strapped gym. But this synopsis hugely buries the lead, because Stunt Nuts is actually a stealth kick-ass sequel, the third entry into Matthew Vaughn's ultra-violent superhero franchise, and the start of a new trilogy of movies in the kick-ass universe. Vaughn isn't directing this time, instead allowing his regular stunt performer Damian Walters to make his filmmaking debut. But is this really what anyone wants out of a new kick-ass movie? Stunt Nuts could be a fun project in isolation, but tethered to the wider cinematic universe of Kick-Ass, which most folk assumed collapsed with the failure of Kick-Ass 2 back in 2013, it's basically impossible to care at all. Odder still, a fourth Kick-Ass film, a standalone Stunt Nuts sequel called Stunt Nuts Does School Fight, was shot way back in 2021 and is still awaiting release. Given that Vaughn's entire empire of edgy action films has been on the skids for a good while, it's difficult to give a damn about any of these films. Number 4. The Family Plan 2. When mining movies for sequel potential, the most obvious stop is clearly an Apple TV Plus streaming action comedy that approximately 7 people even remember they actually watched. Too mean? Maybe a little bit. But 2023's Mark Wahlberg vehicle, The Family Plan, was rightly panned by critics and seemingly evaporated from the cultural consciousness within a week or two of its release. Yet this much is undeniable. The film was Apple's most watched original movie upon release, and so it follows that they'd want to invest in another go-around. But even most of those who had a fun enough time with it as disposable entertainment likely weren't desperately jonesing for a sequel. The Family Plan is a textbook example of vanilla, inoffensive streaming genre fare that's easy to half-watch while scrolling your phone or doing your laundry. But it's hardly the sort of material that rustles up an honest-to-God fan base or leaves folk desperately craving more of it. Number 3. St. Elmo's Fire 2. Joel Schumacher's St. Elmo's Fire is remembered less for its content than for starring a bevy of up-and-coming 80s actors, some of whom would become megastars in their own right. Emilio Estevez, Rob Lowe, Demi Moore, Judd Nelson, Ali Sheedy, Andy McDowell, and Mare Winningham. Though panned by critics, the Razzie Award-winning of-age drama about a group of young people adjusting to postgraduate life was a solid box office hit. All the same, it's certainly not looked upon fondly by the great many compared to other notable dramas and comedies from the era. And yet Rob Lowe teased that a sequel was being developed last summer, and last October followed up by confirming that St. Elmo's Fire 2 is moving along. Lowe added that all of the original cast members are on board to return, and it's now a case of locking down the right story and screenwriter. But even those moviegoers most nostalgic for the 80s will struggle to muster much enthusiasm for this one. How many folk are truly eager to know what became of these frankly insufferable characters 4 decades later? Number 2. Slumdog Millionaire 2. Despite winning the Best Picture Oscar and grossing over $375 million worldwide, there's nothing about Danny Boyle's terrifically entertaining drama Slumdog Millionaire that provides an easy in for a sequel. And that's why it obviously hasn't been seriously considered over the last 15 plus years. But it was reported late last year that newly formed production company Bridge 7 has acquired the movie's sequel and TV rights to Slumdog Millionaire, allowing them to produce follow-up content. While Slumdog Millionaire 2 is in the very early stages, it will reportedly follow the next chapter of Jamal's journey, though there's no confirmation whether stars Dev Patel and Frida Pinto will be returning, nor director Boyle or original writer Simon Beaufoy. Slumdog was such a perfect standalone work that one wonders what the filmmakers might do here beyond rehashing the same concept again, with an older Jamal going on maybe another game show. But given that Patel's career has flourished considerably since the movie's release, it isn't easy to imagine him being lured back for a sequel that few were actively angling for in the first place. Number 1. Samaritan II. Remember Samaritan? No? It was a gritty Sylvester Stallone starring superhero action film released direct to Amazon Prime in 2022. And though it wasn't terrible, it wasn't all that good either, and certainly not massively memorable. And so few expected to hear anything more from the $100 million genre flick, which surely couldn't have turned a profit for anyone involved. And yet, its chart-topping performance on the streaming platform was enough that in late 2023, Amazon quietly confirmed that Samaritan II has indeed received the green light. Stallone has been signed to return, while original screenwriter Bragi F. Shute will also be back to pen the sequel's script, though details beyond this are still firmly under wraps. Samaritan was absolutely fine, but did the project really do enough for Amazon to make this sequel worthwhile? Obviously, they're privy to analytics that we aren't, but in purely creative terms, the public demand for another go-around is nearly non-existent. This is a film that existed in people's minds for a few hours and then promptly vanished.